I just want to talk to you a little bit today about your daily bread. About your daily bread. We're coming, I'm going to actually preach I was only going to make it 5 weeks, but I'm going to do 6 weeks because I don't want to keep you here for an hour. I got too much to say. Don't preach 2 sermons on one Sunday at one time. And people won't come back the next week. So I just want to spend some time just on Matthew 6 chapter, the 11th verse. Give us this day our daily bread. Let me say that today. Give us this day our daily bread. University, it is amazing to me. It is amazing to me how we take for granted what we have. I think many of us took for granted the idea of daily bread until it became an acute issue. When COVID hit, many of us were so used to going to your Safeways, your Whole Foods, your Trader Joe's, and just going in, filling up your basket, and getting exactly what you wanted. I was interested and dismayed. I thought it was funny at first until I had to go grocery shopping myself. I was like, why are they lining up for food? The world's not coming to an end. We just got the flu. I guess I wasn't the only person that thought that, because there was a lot of people online with me after. But it became interesting. In the beginning, people were just rushing to get canned goods because they didn't know how long the COVID pandemic was going to last. But something interesting started happening during the summer as farms and factories and other things started closing down. We started experiencing significant shortages of things that we thought were always easy to get. I remember eggs were hard to get. Eggs were hard to get. Used to call people and let them, I saw them at that supermarket. Go over to Molly Stone's, they got some eggs. They got bread over there. We didn't care what price we paid for that. We just wanted eggs. But as I think back at it, it is one of these stark experiences where our daily bread was not just out there to grab. For many of us living in one of this affluent community, it was the first time we faced the reality of many people in the world and in our countries and that live on the side of 101 or in the creek in San Jose or in the safe parking lot in Gigham Road. Many people live in garages and apartments and they look like they all have it together, but getting their daily bread is a challenge. What is my next meal? How am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? So it seems very interesting to me that at this point in the Lord's Prayer, the first thing he said was, give us this day our daily bread. Some of you have glanced and grazed past that as a quick statement, as a quick movement, but I encourage you to go back and look in your past and look at your holy imagination and imagine if you didn't get the supply or the thing you wanted during that COVID shortage. Imagine if weeks in and weeks out you couldn't get what you needed. The interesting thing that so many of us miss and so many of us don't understand is that our daily bread is not that daily. Now, some of you are saying, you're talking about food, Pastor, that's great, but let's talk about job, and let's talk about relationships and family. Let's talk about the basics and situations where we worry about children. So many of us have situations in our daily life that very much like the desire to eat are not being met. And in this moral and ethical and theological moment that is compressed all into one sentence, we see God's very wish for us in our daily bread. I just want to take a few minutes just to work through a few things for you. I want to say the prayer is for who is my first point. The prayer for when is my second point. And the prayer for what is my third point. I just want you to understand I'm only going to talk about our daily and bread. I'm not even going to go too far. I don't have to wonder too far. The words are fully loaded and have a lot of context, meaning, and desire. Dr. Jordan, I just want to say the prayer is for who? It seems very interesting to me as you read the Lord's Prayer, it's interesting the shift in tone that happens at this moment. Right before this, it says, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done. Then at the moment it says, on earth as it is in heaven. And then it says, give us our daily bread. Jesus, in teaching his disciples, was that you honor God in the beginning, but this prayer is specifically for you. This is a powerful pronouncement that this prayer is not just a group prayer, not just a group for the priest, not for somebody else. It is for you and you and you and you. So many of us have issues around prayer because we are looking at prayer as if it's somebody else for something else. This prayer is specifically for you. I know some of you say, well, Pastor, I pray about the major things in the world every day, but it's a prayer that is designed to be personal for you. Sister Green, as a good Methodist, I understand that prayer is a means of grace. What is a means of grace? A means of grace, you hear me say it when we do communion. A means of grace, by our definition, is a reliable and active way that we experience God. Prayer is a reliable and active way that we can experience God. It is not just for the altar rail. It is not just for the preacher front. It's not for those of us that speak in King James to just say fancy prayers. This prayer is designed for me and you just to have a closer relationship. That's why it's our prayer to our Father, the personal God that is above. And I believe that so many of us, because of our perception or habits, miss the fact that God can do so much more with our prayers. It's interesting to me that people recognize voices. There's certain people in our lives whose voices you could recognize anywhere. For most people, you could be in a crowded mall, but if my wife calls me by my full name from down the hallway, I immediately pick up the sound. Now, whether I respond and walk away because she's calling me to the store, you wouldn't be able to do the same thing with somebody that was a stranger. Will God recognize your voice? When you call, is it a strange voice, a distant voice? Or is it a voice that has been calling his name? He's going to hear it both. But what is the relationship at that moment when you call? I'm grateful for grace because I don't have to have it all together for God to hear my voice. I don't have to have this profound and deep prayer life. But one thing I know is I hear him better when I've been calling on him more. The more time we spend praying to our Father, the easier it is us to spot God's voice. I know for many of us, right, Pastor, well, what does this mean? When should I talk? I think we need to understand that in this moment, Jesus is explicitly inviting you to pray. This is an explicit invitation. And this is interesting because he tells you when to pray. Pray when? Daily. In every situation, without ceasing, and without giving up. Now, what is interesting to me is I don't have an emergency every day. I don't have a problem every day. I don't have a major issue every day. So some of us, you should be asking the question, well, that's what I pray for. What am I praying to God about? When you pray to God daily, you can start inviting God into other parts of your life and your existence. Besides the emergency, besides the issue, besides the thing. Sometimes I just pray to God, can I just stay awake for this call? It might sound like it's petty, but it's supernatural. God, can you help me with this thing? I know it's just writing the email, but just give me the words. God, I know I got this major decision. Can you help me there? God, can you allow me to focus and just spend time with my child and not be distracted by other things? God, can you just allow me to get there on time? Lord, can you just allow this to finish? What am I saying? My daily prayer is I'm inviting God to be in every moment of my life. When I'm driving, when I'm sitting at my office, whether I'm walking around Palo Alto, whether I'm on a plane, whatever I am doing in the habit of daily, I'm inviting God through my prayers. How do I pray in that moment, Jermaine? Sometimes it's in my mind. Sometimes it's closing my eyes at the stoplight. Sometimes it's put a dark screen on the Zoom and just bow my head and pray, because in that moment, I need God. Sometimes it's just taking a walk around the block. Sometimes it's at the gym. Sometimes it is just me laying in my bed. It doesn't matter. I have structured prayer time in the morning, but I pray all day, every day, because Lord knows I've tried to be self-navigating. I really have. I've really tried to figure it all out. I really thought I had it all together. But what I realized is when I start praying in and out of season, in and out of the moment, in and out of a situation, God starts becoming more active in my life. And even though I might have been doing all right, and even though I might have been doing just fine, something changes, whether it be my disposition or disposition. God has moved in my life in some profound ways because I turn daily into the present moment that I'm in. I need somebody that's going to declare, I've been praying to God for the little things and the big things. I've been praying to God for all the things. We all have habits. Hopefully, most of us brush our teeth every night. Many of us go on a run or hit the gym every morning, and some of us acquire bad habits like biting on nails or the end of a pen. Habit formation is the process by which new behaviors become automatic. Old habits are hard to break, and new habits are hard to form. That's because behavioral patterns we repeat most often are literally etched in our neural pathways. And that's from habit formation from psychology today. When you have taught your brain and body soul to respond to all circumstances with prayer, it becomes automatic. I just want you to know that it might feel weird. You might feel out of place. You might feel like this ain't right, but keep on doing it. I want to challenge you. Brother Robert didn't know how much he blessed me. His small group, the Palo Alto small group, did this, and they got a little rock and they painted P on it, right, Sister Green? And they walked around. The other small groups will do it this week. Don't worry, don't feel left out. You all get there. Y'all will get there. But this is visible reminder to pray. Sometimes we just need a visible reminder to take with us so we know to pray. I know for me, I just know that if I rub on this rock and I'll remember, if it's in my pocket and they talking crazy, I'll just rub on the rock and be like, God, I need you. I need you now. God, this rock is just a reminder of the habit. I want to encourage you. Some of you might buy a rock. Some of you might go to the store and buy a fancy rock. Whatever you get something that you can just hold to remind yourself to build the habit of prayer. It's interesting to me how we miss the greatest power. Now, the last thing is pray for what? Pray for what? Pray for what? It says bread. Now, we can look at bread as the end product. So when I say pray for my daily bread, some of you are thinking a loaf of white, well, we're in Palo Alto, it's a loaf of wheat bread. Yeah, they don't do white bread around here. I had to go look for one, and it was in the back corner behind the garbage can. They didn't have no white bread here. They ain't know you fry some fish, put in white. No, that's not what they do. I'm telling the truth, right? So, but you're not just praying for the end product, Dr. Jordan. What blessed me as I was doing my research is that many people have looked at this idea of bread through the ages, and what they realize is you are not just praying for the end product. When you start praying for bread, you are praying for how that bread is distributed so it gets to the supermarket. Then you're praying for the factory that produces the bread. So they've milled the bread and they've got it into a flour and all the ingredients and they've brought it back. Then you're praying for the trucks that have transported all the different ingredients for the bread to get there. Then you're praying for the farmer that planted the bread and watered the field and picked it all up and brought it to you, brought it to the factory to be done. And then you're praying for the birds and the bees that have pollinated the plants that have made it. Then you're praying to God that created the seed, that put it in the soil, that made it, and it popped up and sprouted out. What am I saying? My daily bread is not just the physical manifestation of the thing that is right in front of you. When you start saying daily bread, you are talking about the distribution, the production, the farming, all that is needed. So when I start praying my daily bread for my situation in my life, I am not just praying to God to change the moment, but change the cause, change the problem, and change the issue. I need God to step all the way back in my situation and move in my life. So when I pray for my daily bread, I don't know who I'm talking to. You are praying for God to transform everything for you. Imagine if I bring every little thing to God. I believe that we can drag heaven, and this is quoted from the book, we can drag heaven down into the darkest earthly situation with our prayers. So many of us miss the opportunity because we're not in dialogue and discourse in those situations. University, I want to open the altar one more time. Just for prayer. I'm not going to pray because I'm talking about your petition. It would be antithetical, Charles, for me to go start praying after I spent the first 5 minutes of the sermon talking about our. Sometimes preachers don't do things that make sense. But this one going to make sense today. And I don't need you to bring the major things right now. There's some small things in your life that you haven't brought to prayer that I think God wants you to bring to prayer today. You know, one of the things we can do is we can bring the big things. But there's some small things. You know, and if I said small things and you thought of it, you know what to pray for. Because I believe you start asking God for the small things, it gives you more margin for the big things. It also reduces the anxiety, the stress, and the challenges on the big things because you have more margin. So the altar is open. We're going to sing something. He got me. Okay. But I want to give you as much time as needed. Because there's a lot of little things that we haven't prayed about. Things that we thought were too insignificant for God to impact. But church, my wife tells me often, she says, why do you have so much faith in prayer? And I said, because God answered so many little prayers for me before. You know, why do you have the certainty that God's going to do certain things? Because he answered a lot of little prayers before. My faith is not built on God just doing miraculous big things. It's a lot of little things like God. They said this plane is going to take off at 4:30, and I have a connecting flight. I want to see my family. Please hold this plane. Ran as fast as I could, breathing hard, had to walk because that airport was big. But when I got there, we had to hold the door open for a little while longer for food service. I was like, God, you did something that not even the federal government did. You held a plane. Because he can do it. The altar is open. Please come. Bring it.